program. But there were two other significant stories that affect Americans, and they are costs, especially for elderly Americans and retired Americans, that are extremely significant. But what's funny is no one's talking about it. Everyone's acting like there will be no change. But that's what we're going to discuss today.
Yeah, it was amazing, John, that these two stories came out this week and nobody's really spending much time talking about it, and especially in a presidential election campaign. But let's get right to it. As many of you know, if you've been listening to this program, we talked last year that the Social Security Disability Trust Fund was going to go broke in 2016. So in November, they did a quick fix that bought them about 7 more years before the disability fund goes broke. And as many of you are aware, they got rid of file and suspend and file and restrict, two strategies you could use with Social Security that would really protect women who make up about 85% of Social Security survivor benefits. And so they took those benefits away, hurting women. Nobody talked about it. So the problem was last year, in order to increase Medicare premiums to cover the cost of Medicare, premiums would have gone up 52%. Now, you can imagine this year's a presidential election year, and you can imagine how seniors would feel seeing their premiums go up 52%. So that was the fix last year. The problem is we have 2017, and the Medicare trustees report just came out, which we'll get into in this segment. The long and short of it is, the rules of Social Security in Medicare is they cannot increase Medicare premiums more than the cost of the increase of Social Security benefits. It's projected for 2017, the increase in your Social Security benefit will be 0.2%. Whoopee. And you're probably thinking, that's not much. Well, believe it or not, it's better than 2016 when it was 0. So the problem is with Social Security benefits only going up 0.2%, Medicare is in trouble. So the way the law works, and this began with President George Bush, there began 3 layers of Medicare premiums based on your income. There's those that make less than $85,000, and then there's those that make over $214,000, and there's numbers in between. Let's get to the gist of it. 70% of those of you on Medicare now, if you're making below $85,000 a year, your deductibles are going up next year and your cost will be flat. But for the other 30% that make up over $85,000, your Medicare premiums are going to be going up 22% beginning January 1st. Also, for all individuals, your Medicare deductible is going to go from $166 to $204 in 2017. That's an increase of 23%. If you are on Medicare Part D, your premium is going up 19% from $34 to almost $41. Your Part D deductible is going from $360 to $400, an increase of 11%. And if you are not on Medicare and have private insurance, next year you could see premiums are going to be going up double digits. So, John, if you take a look at this, the problem that they have is as a result of Obamacare, medical costs are skyrocketing. There are a lot of people that aren't paying for it. Somebody's got to pay for it. And so what they're doing is they're distinguishing, and this began, believe it or not, with George Bush, that there's 3 levels of Medicare premiums based on the incomes that you make. So, for example, if you make $85,000 to $107,000, your premiums are going to go next year to $170.50 a person from $104. And then if you make over $214, your Medicare premiums are going to go from $389 to $467.20. So it's not just the fact that your Medicare premiums are going to go up 22%, your deductibles are going up 23%. Your Part D premiums are going up 19%, and your Part D deductible is going up 11%. And for the average American getting private insurance, they're going to see double-digit increases in Medicare cost premiums, whether it's deductibles or it is in premiums that you're going to pay. And then by the year 2018, all premiums, and those for making less than $85,000, beginning in 2018, the premium will go from $104 a month to $124.40 for everybody. So it's not just that the 30% that make above 85,000 are going up next year. They'll also be going up double digits in 2018.
I think what you're telling me here, Jim, is that this is really the beginning of what we've been calling here on the program for a long time, the great reneging, where government is backing to the door on a lot of its promises. And of course, the biggest promise is Medicare and Social Security. And there are others out there that will likewise suffer this, but you can see it. And what is interesting is how stealthily this is being done.
You know, we're talking here about Medicare. We're going to get into how this impacts you in your retirement, because there are a number of studies. More studies, John, are being done on retirement, with the number one big issue is medical expenses. Next to taxes will be the single biggest expense any retired couple will face in their retirement life. But the other thing that has come out, there's another study that just came out-of-pocket expenses have also been going up since the passage of Obamacare. There was a study that just came out, private insurance hospital out-of-pocket expenses. Now, what that means is when you go into a hospital and you have private insurance, let's say you have it with your employer, what is happening, your out-of-pocket expenses, what the insurance doesn't cover, is increased 37% since the passage of Obamacare. Out-of-pocket expenses are going up at 6.5% a year. And this is worse. Deductible expenses are up 86% from 2010, meaning that your insurance company or your employer healthcare is basically saying to keep the costs down, they're going with higher deductibles, which means you, the employee, are going to have to shell out more money out of your own checkbook before the insurance kicks in. Co-insurance costs are up 33%. So employers are basically saying, look, we can't absorb these double-digit increases every single year, and we need to keep some of these costs down. So co-insurance costs are up 33%. There's another tax that's going to go into effect in 2020, and that's what is called a Cadillac plan. And a Cadillac plan, what Obama said is, look, if you provide all these rich benefits, medical benefits to your employees, we're going to tax them. So what employers are starting to do is to keep the cost of their health insurance for employees. They're increasing the co-insurance pay. They're increasing the deductible to keep down below a certain level. Otherwise, you, the employee that receives health care coverage from your employer, are going to now have to start paying taxes on your medical benefits. You know, and the other thing is the Kaiser Foundation just did a study. The average annual deductible for the average American with private insurance in this country right now is averaging $1,300. And John, deductible expenses are going up at double digits every single year. It's one of the ways that employers and insurance companies are trying to keep the limit on costs down, is by increasing the co-insurance and increasing the amount of copay that the person insured has to pay. So this is going to be a big, big issue, and we'll get into the trustee report here is the reason why you're seeing these costs, because Obamacare was a major escalation in healthcare cost, and simply, even with all the taxes that are put in place, they can't pay for it.
What we're all describing here is you realize how fantastic this is going. We also notice, Jim, we talk about healthcare costs are going up. Now, prior to Obamacare, one of the things that we truly, truly did need was healthcare reform. Things had to be reformed, one of which is how prices are structured, because the prices are wildly out of control in many areas. And that's what, of course, drives the cost up to the insurers, which then drives it up to the employers and to the people. So that's one real reform that we needed, which never happened. You know, it was one of the critical ones out of Obamacare. The reason we're talking as much as we do on this show about staying healthy and arresting certain diseases, your lifestyle, your diet, is that more and more, you're just seeing the beginning of this great reneging on healthcare. More and more is going to be dependent on what you and I do rather than on what providers do for us. And for seniors, just look at it this way. The cost of healthcare is the single most fastest inflationary expense in their retirement budget. And remember, Jim, that healthcare costs are going up in excess of what just inflationary costs are going up for everybody else elsewhere. So you can see that this is something that really needs to be brought under control, but that is not even on the horizon right now as far as what Congress is dealing with. And for 2017, you're going to see premiums going up 22 to 23% a year. That's next year, 2017. And this is just starting. And so the critical thing to realize right now as the game starts, so to speak, is to know what you're going to do about your own health care.
You know, it's absolutely amazing. On top of this, John, the other story that wasn't covered this week, we just talked about the 22%, 23% increase in cost. But the Social Security trustees issued their annual report. They're required to do that once a year on the Medicare trust funds. And according to the study, let's put it this way, their funds are going to hell in a handcart, but not right away. And what they said is, even with the trust fund programs that have grown to represent unfunded liabilities, right now, the unfunded liabilities for Medicare are $11.7 trillion, up $700 billion in the last year from the previous report. Now, what Social Security is doing is they're selling their IOUs, which means there is no trust fund, folks. And politicians, that was one good thing, I think, in the Republican debates this year, is a number of politicians from Chris Christie and others are saying there is no trust fund. There is none. The money's been spent, Congress spent it, and they issued IOUs. But those IOUs are being sold and cashed in. Now, the trust fund said the program will run dry, including all the IOUs, by 2034. The program paid out last year $707 billion to 48.1 million Americans. And here's the issue. The tax revenue that comes in from payroll taxes has not covered Social Security retirement income since 2010. So it's really a pay-as-you-go system. The problem is it's going to be broke. As we mentioned earlier, the Disability Trust Fund was going to go broke in 2016 until they did that last-minute budget deal in November and took away some very important benefits for surviving women on Social Security. So, John, they're also saying that Medicare Part B, Medicare Part A, Medicaid, everything is basically going to be going broke.
Now, Jim, we have to put all of this in perspective. Let's go back to President Bush's State of the Union message when he told Congress over a decade ago that we were very soon going to be going broke. Remember what the response was?
We must also confront the larger challenge of mandatory spending or entitlements. This year, the first of about 78 million baby boomers turned 60, including two of my dad's favorite people, me and President Clinton. This milestone is more than a personal crisis. It is a national challenge. The retirement of the baby boom generation will put unprecedented strains on the federal government. By 2030, spending for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid alone will be almost 60% of the entire federal budget. And that will present future Congresses with impossible choices: staggering tax increases, immense deficits, or deep cuts in every category of spending. Congress did not act last year on my proposal to save Social Security. Yet the rising cost of entitlements is a problem that is not going away.
So if you notice at that point, Jim, all the Democrats were booing President Bush when he was trying to warn that we were headed for a real train wreck here. But if we look at it in the light of this election now, let's zoom forward to where we are here. Donald Trump is not talking about it. And both Mrs. Clinton and Senator Sanders are saying that not only are they not going to try to fix this type of thing, they're going to promise even more and more benefits. At the very same time, the Social Security trustees are saying, we are going broke and you've got to fix this.